Well, there are about 160 vaccine projects worldwide. That's according to the WHO numbers. Our company, Merck, supports about 50 of those. These are very, very different technologies. There are very novel technologies such as mRNA. There are viral vector vaccines. There are classical vaccines. They are progressing along different timelines. The most currently, in terms of timing, most promising projects are the mRNA vaccines. These are companies like BioNTech, CureVac, or Moderna. They have had announced that they will probably have completed their pivotal phase 3 studies by the end of October, and could then submit the data to the regulatory bodies. The FDA has issued new guidance yesterday, as far as I know, which requires at least a 2-month follow-up after the second vaccination. So this may take a couple of weeks longer, but most experts expect data, let's say, around October, November.
The various comments I've heard on this have expressed some concern, perhaps, that because we're in the realm of new technology with the mRNA approach, the genetic approach, that maybe the trial process needs to run longer. Do you have any view on that?
This is, if you look at the design of these trials, there are about 40,000 patients in each of these projects. 40,000 patients is sufficient to determine whether a vaccine is actually working. There's lots of things that we wouldn't know yet. It's only normal. COVID-19 is a disease that causes a so-called lethality, i.e. a death rate of about 0.6%. This is very different from, let's say, a disease like Ebola or so, where 60-70% of the infected patients would die. So yes, it is absolutely rational to require that such vaccines are properly tested. My assumption is that if we have positive phase 3 data, that the authorities will decide that such a vaccine would initially be used in high-risk population, i.e. medical staff, people in nursing homes, or people with other preconditions which would have a significantly higher risk than the average population. And only if we have more data would we then expand this into younger, healthy people.
Let's talk a bit about your business, because when you were presenting your second quarter earnings, you were a lot more upbeat than before. What has happened ever since? It was the beginning of August.
So I think our business model has proven to be quite resilient during this crisis. We have 3 businesses. Our healthcare business is researching and making life-saving medications. Our life science business is making tools for researchers, for biotech companies, for vaccine companies, for doing research and for manufacturing. And our performance materials business is making electronic materials. We're a leader in electronic materials. So all of these businesses are essential during these times. We had seen early on that during the lockdown, that our businesses, quite a few of our businesses, were negatively affected. It's only natural. But then, as of June, we've seen a very nice resurgence of business momentum across the board, and that's why we have somewhat upgraded our guidance for this year.
When we look at new infection rates, though, they are on the rise across the continent. Is that a concern to your outlook?
Sure, that's a concern to everyone. We have discussed with analysts and investors what our assumptions are. Our assumption is that there won't be that there's no broad availability of a vaccine during the course of this year. We assume that the pandemic will continue. We assume that there will be local or regional restrictions. But the basic assumption is that we're not going to move back into a universal, basically global lockdown. Very difficult to predict what's happening right now. All we can do is make our assumptions transparent.
Stefan, as try as I may, I can't get your words out of my head that you told Jeff and I 2 years ago in Davos, and that was your scathing criticism of the European desire at an institutional level to compete technologically with the rest of the globe as well. Has COVID-19 represented something of a reset for European aspirations at an institutional stroke governmental level?
Yeah, my mantra over the past couple of years has been I've been talking mostly about two topics. One was pandemic preparedness, and the other one was the necessity for a thriving European innovation ecosystem. So this crisis now, I think, was a wake-up call for plenty of people. If you look at how the population, what the attitude of the population is towards science and technology, I've seen recent data. There has been a significant increase in terms of how much people trust science, how important they perceive science to be. And when I talk to politicians and other policymakers and stakeholders, I feel that this pandemic has been a wake-up call, and that quite a few people within the EU and within national governments are now seriously thinking about what needs to be done so that we can actually have a highly effective innovation ecosystem, such as it would exist in the United States or in China or maybe in Israel.
Stefan, on that point, we are following the science here in the UK, and there was much debate about whether another national lockdown is required. There seems to be some suggestion that these local restrictions, local lockdowns are not doing the trick to stop a second wave of infections, so perhaps a national lockdown would be required. What do you make of the impact of that if it happens, and whether it would be likely across on many of the different countries on the continent?
So any type of lockdown would obviously have a highly negative effect on economic development. Yeah, we've seen this during the lockdown in China. Initially, in our business, we drew quite a few lessons from that. We saw then that in the United States and in Europe and elsewhere during the lockdown, I know, to give you examples, fertility clinics were closed. People with multiple sclerosis received less treatment. So there would be a significant effect on that. It is usually what we've learned is it is directly related to the lockdown as such. So it's nothing structural. As long as clinics are closed, no patients are being treated. As long as academic research laboratories are closed, no experiments are being conducted. So this would obviously have a negative impact.